Good morning, church. There is so much to be thankful for. As I was listening to various things going on today, I heard Kyle in his prayer talk about the Lord's Supper and include the word thanks. And then when we had the actual Lord's Supper being served, we heard Ken talk about something that had been happening, Ken, for 2,000 years, and asking that we do not take it for granted. We have Thanksgiving today. We give thanks today because 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ came to this world and died for us. If it wasn't for that, we would not have much to give thanks for. When we think about what will happen on Thursday, we will come together for a meal, and we're going to have all these nice things that we are thankful for. And when we came together today, we came together for a meal. And I thought about this meal. I really thought about it as it was being served, specifically because Ken said, let's not take it for granted. And so I thought about that. I'm taking his body, and I'm eating that bread. I'm taking the fruit of the vine, and I'm drinking that blood. At least that's what he's wanting me to think. And I'm not doing what the Old Testament sacrifices did, right? I'm not pouring the grape juice on my head, because that's what would be happening if it was still part of that old sacrifice. But now I'm putting it in me. And so I kind of went back to the day I was baptized. And according to Revelations 1:5, I came into contact with the blood of Christ. The blood of Christ washed me. And so you see, the first time I had communion with the Lord, it was literally or metaphorically grape juice being poured over me, that metaphorically symbolized his blood being poured over me. One time, right? But after that, it wasn't over me anymore. It was in me. And I became the body of Christ. And again, this morning, as we all took it, we didn't have it on top of us. We weren't being anointed, or the blood wasn't washing us over. That happened back then. Now we were part of the body. And so we are so thankful that we're part of the body. But we do this every single Sunday. And so it can be something that we can take for granted. I don't take for granted, David, that you have brought your baby with us here today. I'm so excited to meet that young guy. But it's easy for us, once we see these babies grow up and we meet them every Sunday, it's easy for us to start taking them for granted, and then even to say, I wish the babies wouldn't cry that much. But it's because we take it for granted, because we don't realize what is happening. It's growth. It's beautiful. A preacher realized this was happening, and so one day with the Lord's Supper, he had 4 tables set out. And instead of the members having the Lord's Supper taken to them, he had them come up, and he had the 4 elders meeting the congregation in 4 different places. And as the congregants came together, the elders would say from 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 26, they would give the bread first and then the grape juice to each person that came up. But they would sort of file out of the aisles and then meet the elder, and the elders would look in their eyes, and each one would say, for as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. And a strange thing happened, because they came from the first rows all the way to the back, and so the back rows sort of could see what was happening. And instead of it just being a routine, tears were flowing down their eyes, because they realized we are so incredibly thankful for this meal. We are so thankful that we as a family and as individual families will meet up with our extended families. And in our case, this is a great thing for Doreen and I. Once a year, for 2 days, maybe 4, depending on how the boys can hang around, we have our 3 boys in one close area, and Doreen's parents with us, and it's so gratifying for us. We do not take that for granted. We absolutely don't. And so Jesus gives us, through the Apostle Paul in Galatians chapter 6, 3 laws. In fact, in verse 2, it's called the law of Jesus. 3 laws that we can use in our growth to increase what we already have. And I want you not only to take this to your year as a church, as growth, but take it on Thursday to your families. The first one that you see is church growth. The second one would be circular growth. And the last one will be consequence growth. So we deal with the first one and we say, okay, what is church growth all about? Well, church growth is bringing in those who are sinning, those who are struggling with sin, where sin just won't let go of them. And if you look at the outline, you'll see there's the law of church growth. Number one, bring back the fallen, which is the scripture we had from Ben just a little while ago in Galatians 6, verse 1. We'll also see under church growth, there's keep the faith of the flock. The third one will be remain humble within the fellowship. And the fourth one, bring in from the field. And so you can think, you want to get your families together, right, on Thursday. So all of these apply. Some of your family members may be caught up in sin. In other words, they may have really blasted their parents and be filled with guilt and not want to come. So you have to sort of edge them gently, there. And this is what is happening. Brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, so not one, but anything. It can be anything. And it's a kind of a sin or transgression that you're stuck in. You're caught in it. So if you, who are spiritual because you're not caught in that, and because you're not going to be tempted in helping them back, if you notice that, then you with gentleness would try to bring this person back. So brothers is talking to the church, if anyone is caught in transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. If you were caught in something, right, wouldn't you want somebody to come to you gently? If you say that you don't sin, you deceive yourself. If you say you've never sinned, you make God out to be a liar. So sin is a reality in our lives. It's the blood of Christ that covered us once, and the body that we imbibe on every single Sunday that makes us whole, that gives us a fighting chance. It's the grace of God, nothing we do. The context of Galatians, I talked about it a little bit last week. Just to remind you, the context of Galatians is circumcision. They were trying to bring the old law back in. And now Jesus has completed through Paul in making this really solid argument. And now he says, let me tell you about the law that you need to bring back in. And the first one he's talking about is the law of Jesus, which we call here the law of church growth. Number one, bring back the fallen. So you bring back somebody, you restore somebody like that. If you're spiritual, in other words, you're not caught in that same sin, and you're strong enough to withstand temptation, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch over yourself, lest you too be tempted. One day, I noticed that somebody who was attending at this congregation, that their attendance was sporadic. I mean, very sporadic. And so I went to the house, and as I pulled up into the house, I saw this big RV. And that started to make sense to me. If you own an RV that costs almost the price of your house, what do you want to do every Sunday, or every weekend? You want to make use of it, or your family members say, boy, that was a stupid buy. And so you take it, and you go out, and you have your Budweisers in your refrigerator, and you have your fishing tackle, and you catch fish, and you think, well, why are you popping the Budweisers and catching the fish? That you can also be faithful, because that's what you thought when you started out. Somehow, if you take a coal away from fire, it gets cold. Folks, if we were meeting individually in our homes every Sunday, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's a chance, not a big chance, there's a chance that we could grow cold. There's something about, as Ken said, look at us now, right? It would not have been in existence long, but look at us now. Look at how warm we keep ourselves, how we encourage each other. There's something to be said for a good, peace-loving church like Summit, but we need to bring each other back. Keep watch over yourself, lest you too be tempted. So if I go talk to this brother and I talk to him about his RV, guess what he's going to say? If I'm not the preacher, right? He's going to say, you need to come with me. I mean, who likes to drink alone, right? You need to come with me. You need to see just how wonderful this lifestyle is that I have. And so I might be drawn away, because not only that, this person might start to tell me reasons why coming here is actually a slip. Coming here, you have to come up this big hill, and some of you have to drive really far to get here. And so I could be pulled away. So the first thing with the law of church growth as it applies to you on Thursday, bring back your family. Really, bring back as many of your family as what you can. Sit them around that meal. Have a real Thanksgiving or giving thanks meal. Bring back the fallen. And then verse 2, keep the faith of the flock. There's a reason why we are together. And the reason is, you can have many reasons, but I think it all comes back to what happened 2,000 years ago on the cross. Keep the faith of the flock. And so here in Galatians chapter 6, verse 2, it says, this is how you're going to do it. Bear one another's burdens and so fulfill what? The law of Christ. Did you know? It's not just the Old Testament that had a law. Christ had a law. And the law is, when things get really tough. And Kyle, I really appreciate in his prayer, mentioned all the times, Kyle, you talked about how, and you said it twice, you really brought it in. Things can be tough, and if they're not tough now, you said they will be tough, right? How do we get through that? We bear the burdens. Jesus had 12 apostles, and these 12 apostles were sent out. They were trained for 3 years, and then they were sent out to help Israel bear its burdens, to help this new fledgling church learn to bear each other's burdens. Not easy. Not easy. Yesterday, we had something incredible happening at this building. We had 12 young people come together. They got into our kitchen. They made a meal. They even made dessert for, Brian, do I have it right? 65 homeless people. And then they went and served the meal that they'd made here. They didn't go buy it. You can buy casseroles at Sam's. They're not expensive. They made it here, right? Then they went to serve it at a Northern Kentucky homeless shelter. And then Brian said they even decorated those little cupcakes, And they're so proud of it. Then they went together, and then they talked about it. And they worshiped together. I said, Brian, that's like the complete package. I can't think about how to do that better. It was perfect. And then we have Natalie Denham. She finds a whole bunch of homeless people, and they need socks. Who would have thought that they need socks? And again, for the second year, right? They need socks, and so we do this. And Brian came back. He said, we're going to talk to the elders, but these people need some immediate things. And he's going to talk to us about that pretty soon. And then we have, what do we call that? Candace sacking the pulpit, right? In December, we're going to, there you go. We're going to try to sack the pulpit, make the pulpit, this whole area, make it disappear with things that we can give. That's how we bear one another's burdens. Yesterday, my father-in-law went for a checkup, and we found out that his vocal cords has some kind of thing going on, and he needs steroids, and he needs antibiotics, and so we were running in different directions yesterday. And after doing surgery, a few of the ladies brought some food, and we had that food, but we took one meal just in case something like this would happen, and we put it in the freezer. It was called a depression meal. But it didn't taste like a depression meal, Miss Thelma. It tasted like the other name you gave it, a Roman holiday. It tasted like it was wonderful. We all ate, 4 adults, we ate of it, and there was some left, and I think there was a little bit of gravy that I put on the dog, and the dog ate all his pellets, But we kept enough so that I could have another meal. We needed that. And yes, Miss Thelma, and I think you passed octogenarian status, Miss Thelma, and she's the one that helped us bear our burdens. Folks, there's a Ruth Ann, and Ruth Ann, good to see you, and you're struggling, and she's so grateful for this congregation for helping her bear her burdens. And you can hear, right? I've started to scratch the surface maybe of all the little things going on. There's so many ways that you help us bear each other's burdens. And when you get together on Thursday, understand, as Kyle said, there are things going on in each other's lives that you may not know about. We haven't seen some of our boys for a whole year now, 2 of them. And so we don't know what's going on in their lives. And they may be really struggling, and also the extended family that will be there. We are there to help bearing each other's burdens. More than to take, we want to give. Also, Galatians chapter 6, verse 3 says we need to remain humble within the fellowship. If we're going to continue growing, and Ken, I pray that what you talked about, explosive growth, really happens. But it happens when you have a church filled with people who say, you know what, I'm nothing. I don't think I'm something, because in fact, I'm nothing. And that's what the elders need of me and of every one of us. Because you see, I have ideas, and you all have ideas. And we always think ideas are the best ideas, but at the end of the day, the elders need to say, this is what we're going to do, and we need to say, yes, sir, I respect that. Just this week, I told the elders, whatever you all come up with, I will respect it. And the elders who've been elders for a while, they know that I really mean that. And then the two new elders, they will find out if they tell me to do something as an eldership, I'm okay with that. I respect that. And so look at Galatians chapter 6, verse 3. And when you come together, remember the humility that you need to have a very good thanksgiving. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. And so let's come together with a spirit of humility always. The last thing under the law of church growth we need is verses 4 and 5. And this one is a little bit hidden. It has to do with growing the church. So not only do we keep the saved, not only do we remain humble, but we also have to bring in people. And so this one talks, in the commentary of this one, I would say would be 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 9, where Paul says he is a master architect. We'll talk about how we build on this foundation, not with new things, because the foundation is already laid. But then he says you can build with wood, stubble, or hay, in other words, bad stuff that's going to be burned up, and you will be saved. Verse 15, yet as one escaping fire. Or you can build with gold, diamonds, precious stones, and in the day of fire, in the day of testing, the day of judgment, your work will stand. And what he's talking about here is the people we bring up, the people we bring with us. And I mentioned, first of all, the people we bring up. I'm very concerned that when judgment comes, my 3 boys are there, that Dwayne and I are here in judgment, and we see that they don't make it. And I don't want to get graphic, but you can understand what I was just saying, right? And that's what we all fear of as parents, but we need to go beyond that. This year we were very fortunate. We had Bibles out on that table all year round, constantly giving out Bibles of people who came. But we need to make sure that that work doesn't get burned up. And so how do we do that? Start off with your families, Galatians chapter 6, verse 4 and 5, and then your spiritual family. But let each one test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone and not in his neighbor. For each will have to bear his own load. So we're all going to appear, and we're all going to take the work that we've had with us, and this is the law of Christ. And we're going to see it's going to be, some of you will be more involved in keeping the saved. Others of you will, and thank you to the elders also for all the hard work you've been doing this. Some will be more involved in bringing the unsaved in. Some of you will be more involved in keeping the peace, keeping each one of us humble. There's so much going on, but that work is going to be tested. So that's the first way we can grow, and we can have a wonderful Thanksgiving. The law of church growth, the law of people growth. The second one is the law of circular growth. And this is a really interesting one. And I've got here the idea of caring and sharing. The preachers or the ministers will share, and the members will care. And I've just used that because of alliteration, but it can be evident in any area. So number 2, look at the law of circular growth, Galatians chapter 6, verse 6. And yeah, we can put them both together. Verses 6 goes to ministers share and members care. And so Andrew, if we can go to the next one. Just go to the 1 point back so we can see, where is it, the main point. Oh, looks like I don't have. The law of circular growth. Do you have that there? There it is, the law of circular growth. That's the second thing we need to think about. And think about this. What you send out will come back, right? So what are you sending out? If you're sitting together Thursday and you want to have the law of circular growth, how will it sound at your tables? Let each one who is taught the word share all good things with the one who teaches. What are you going to be sending out? If I was there and I could be a fly on the wall at your tables, I'd say, send out humility. I would say, send out all the things that you're thankful for. Think of all the things you wanted to tell your family, but you never did. I often think to myself, and I don't tell my wife this, that at judgment, she's going to get to know what I was thinking all my life. And she's going to realize just how much she could have gotten away with. Because I love her so much. And I never tell her. I think it 1,000,000 times a day, but I never say it. She's got to be a mind reader to be married to this guy. But bring those things out as you're gathered around the table. The law of circular growth. Dwayne and I have seen this in our lives. If it wasn't for the sharing of this congregation, we couldn't be doing what we're doing. Brian has felt this. Morgan feels this also on a weekly basis. We can do what we do because of what you do. And that's what it's going to take, more of this. I heard also Kyle praying for the missionaries in his prayer. We have missionaries out there today, Kyle, because of what we do as a congregation. We need to keep doing that. Well, let's go to number 3, the law of consequence growth. The law of consequence growth. There it is. This is one of those things that probably if I had to tell you one law that I've seen more evident in my life than any other law, one principle that's an eternal principle that will never fade, it's this one. And so look with me at Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. Look at the principle, then we'll see the payment, and then we'll see the persistence, and then we'll see the pawpaw plan. When it comes to chapter 6, verse 7, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever one sows, he will also reap. In other words, the seed you sow today determines the crop you'll reap tomorrow. So what are you going to be sowing when you're at your tables? What are you going to be sending around? What type of atmosphere? Some people will come to Thanksgiving and they will come to the idea that it's all about them and the family needs to take care of them and make them feel good. Well, that's not going to make for a good Thanksgiving, right? Others are going to come with an attitude of, what can I do? Either you're going to be sowing to the flesh or you're going to be sowing to the spirit. You can't do both, which comes to the next one, the payment. Look at Galatians chapter 6, verse 8. The payment, Galatians chapter 6, verse 8. For the one who sows to his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption. But the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life. I'm so tempted in my life as a sinner, as a human stuck in this body, in this world, to sow to the things of the flesh. And I know what it is. I know how easy it is for me just to go to the refrigerator and let go. It's a lot harder to discipline my body and to say, listen, I'm going to sow to the Spirit. I'm going to use control over my body to put more emphasis on the Spirit. I was really excited a couple of days ago, to go through the Bible reading plan that I'm on and to look at members that are busy with the same Bible reading plan. And see, Jimmy Hutchinson is 2 days ahead of his daily Bible reading plan. And wow, I'm halfway through today's plan. But many of you have taken that and you're sowing to the Spirit. And that's just one area of your life. Coming to church every Sunday, that's another one. Picking up assignments. We give out weekly assignments in this congregation. Some of you get them, some of you don't. Depends on if you're on email list and on Facebook. But some people really need encouragement, lots of encouragement, and you take those assignments. And that really is a good thing. Well, the payment is very clear, and it has to do with this consequence. And so I want to elaborate just a little bit on this. King Charlemagne, during his rule, decided that he wanted to give a present to the congregation that he was part of. He wanted to put up a big bell. And in those days, they did not have alarm clocks, and so bells were very important. When the bell would ring, your conscience would be ringing. So I need to go to church today. And so Charlemagne wanted this for the congregation. He believed that would really help the growth of the congregation. And so he employed one of the best artists of the day. The artist's name was Toncho. T-A-N-C-H-O, Toncho. And Toncho said, what I need to build this really good bell is a lot of copper, and I need 100 pounds of silver to make the tongue. But guess what Toncho did with the silver? He pocketed it. He put it in his back pocket. And he took highly refined tin and put it in the place of the silver. And so when it came the day to start ringing the bell, the members tried to ring the bell and they couldn't ring it. So Charlemagne, the emperor, said, well, get Toncho here, he'll ring the bell. So Toncho gets under there and he pulls and it won't ring. So he pulls really hard and guess what happens? Boom. Exactly, Jack. Boom. The tongue falls. Listen to this. Psalm 7, verse 16. If this doesn't wake you up with the law of consequences, nothing will. Psalm 7, verse 16. His trouble shall return upon his own head, and his violent dealing shall come down on his own crown. And Toncho was killed. What are you sowing towards? Don't worry about what everybody else is sowing towards. If there's one person that comes to your Thanksgiving meal every year and has a lot of drama, don't let that affect you. You just keep sowing good things, right? God will deal with everybody else. You just deal with the number one problem in your life, the one that looks back at you in the mirror every morning. You work on that person, everything will be good. Well, it's not easy to keep doing this. You need to have persistence. When you are helping people who are weary, it can get to you. If you're around people who are weary, you can start to get weary. And so this is what we have in Galatians 6, verse 9. And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. And again, I listed some of the things that this church is doing, and the list is long. If I have to say thank you to each member here for all you're doing, we will never get through. Thank you so much for all you do. Thank you for making Summit such a beautiful body. Dwayne and I are truly blessed to be here. But it takes hard work. And some days you think, isn't there anybody else that can help? I went to one of the members today that does so much, and I said, I was rehearsing this lesson yesterday, and a flash went off in my face. And this light over here popped. and there it is again. And there's something that needs to get stuck against the wall there, and there it is again. And it just never ends, It's hard to keep on keeping on when it comes to doing good. Chris, if you had to go onto the mission field and you had to take care of all those needs, could you? No. What can you do? Just what you can do, right? Just what your hands find to do. You've got to stick to that. If you don't, you're going to get so weary you won't be able to continue. And so you do everything you can and try your best not to get weary. Galatians 6 verse 10 is the last one, the poor plan. And this one comes to Dwayne and I, courtesy of Tennessee. One day David came home and the teacher talked about the pawpaw. So what the pawpaw? And when Joni and Carol were here just a couple of weeks ago from Tennessee, the first congregation we preached at when we came to America, Hillsborough Church of Christ, Dwayne said, what did you just say? And she said, pawpaw. And we remember that story again of David, the pawpaw, and what it actually was, the poor plan. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to the household of faith. But listen to what it said. Let us do good to everyone. One day, Ben Painter is coming away from a Reds game, and he sees people standing there, homeless people, and it hits him right in the heart. Just a couple of weeks later, he's doing a presentation here, and we are putting bags together. So where we can all have a bag of things we can have in the back of our car, and we can just give that bag to a homeless person. And if he hadn't done that, if he hadn't thought about that, we would not have that. But thankfully he did. Thankfully his heart was touched by that. And we will now have another opportunity to do good to who? To all people, as we see opportunity to everyone, and especially to the household of faith. So this is what Galatians 6 verse 10 is all about. And it's one of those marching commands that we as a church have. A few years ago, we had a tornado hit in this area, and within a week, we had $100,000 worth of groceries in that entrance hall, all labeled, categorized, and we had people come in, and we didn't ask any questions as they needed, we just gave. And if that happens again tomorrow, we will do it again tomorrow. We will not grow weary of doing good. We have a couple of people in this congregation that really work hard, and they just don't give up on what they're doing. And so I have symbolic certificates or awards to give to the whole congregation, but since I can't give to the whole congregation, I can highlight two people. Now, I don't know if you can guess who this first one goes to. The Summit Church of Christ City on a Hill Award. Who do you think gets this one? The Summit Church of Christ City on a Hill City of a Hill Award. Can you put that one on for us, Andrew? The one with the lighthouse. There it is. Presented to Bill Harold on November the 20th, 2016. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Now he's been working so hard at getting this city, this summit, to be visible, this Church of Christ on this summit, that he gets that award. Thank you so much, Bill. Appreciate it very much. This next one is the Summit Church of Christ Servant Award, and I've asked one of the family members to come and receive this one on their behalf because servants are very humble. And I didn't want to stand here and be embarrassed because they don't get here. Let's go to the next one, Andrew. So it is presented to Dave and Nancy Carnes on November the 20th, 2016. So you also, when you have done all that you were commanded, say, you are unworthy servants. We have only done what was our duty. Every time we have an activity here, folks, I'm here the next day. Guess who comes in without being told, without any payment, and they come and empty out the garbage cans? If there's something to be cleaned up, they clean up. And so, Faith, if you would come and get this on behalf of your grandparents, I appreciate it. Nancy, thank you so much. Dave, thank you so much. They do so much. So much. This is going to be a good Thanksgiving for the Summit Church of Christ. And when I say that, I mean the Church of Christ who meets on the summit. We have so much to be thankful for. Thank you so much to our elders. I mean, it's just, the list is endless. If there's anything in your heart that you feel other than thankfulness today, that is something that you need to fix before you go into Thanksgiving. And we have the elders here who can pray for you. You know, doing good is great, but when you are the recipient of it, when you are weary, it's hard to describe that weariness. It can drain you. It can make your bones ache. If you need the prayers of this church, we would love to pray for you today. If you want to become part of the body of Christ, in other words, you want all that grape juice poured over you, if you want the blood of Jesus Christ to wash you clean, please come forward now, either for prayers or for baptism, as together we stand and sing.